This is a good segue to talk about Black Lives Matter a little bit. And Adolph, I have a sneaking suspicion many people that claim to hate you don't actually read your articles. They just read the title and start hyperventilating. So I mean, you recently wrote an article, non-site, of course, why Black Lives Matter can't be co-opted. So can you kind of just break that title down? You know, why is it wrong to talk about the co-optation of Black Lives Matter?
Well, because there was never, I have a response on two levels. One is that co-optation is a cheap and easy way to think about what happens in politics, right? But the other one is that there never was any reason to expect that Black Lives Matter was going to be the thing that people who had high hopes for Black Lives Matter thought it could be, right? In the same way that there never was any reason to expect that Occupy was going to be the thing that people who had highly idealized hopes for what Occupy could be thought it was going to be. And, you know, after a certain time, you just get tired of going through this over and over and over, right? The cycle of hyperinflated expectations about what's not a movement, right? What's not an organic politics, what has no track record of building a constituent base, and is moreover driven by individual personalities, is not going to turn out like it turned out. And with Black Lives Matter, I mean, so when did Garza, Tometi, and Colors invent the hashtag? Was that 2014? Because by 2015, well, so maybe it was 13. I don't know. I'll give them that much. But by 2015, they were already attacking the left, right? And in 2016, and then in 2020, and at all points in between. So who is co-opting whom to do what?
Yeah, it's like, what if you wrote a piece called Why Google Can't Be Co-opted? It's obvious why Google can't be co-opted. The whole fucking point of Google is to do what Google's doing.
Right.
That's exactly why Black Lives Matter can't be co-opted.
That's it.
You know, it's just like, that's what the point of it is right from the start. That's the liberal point. That's the point of its liberals.
Yeah, I guess I want to follow up on that, because I think that at the kind of heart of the argument that Black Lives Matter is being co-opted, which of course, Adolph, you wrote about in Non-Site, is this idea that there exists a radical grassroots anti-racism, which is fundamentally different. I mean, I think a lot of people on the left acknowledge that, like, yes, we don't like corporate diversity. Yes, we don't, or, you know, getting, you know, the Black, Raytheon executive in Biden's cabinet is like not what we want to do. Right. But that said, I think even though you have a lot of people acknowledging that there's a kind of, as I say, corporate anti-racism or like neoliberal identity politics that we should oppose, there still exists some sort of authentic grassroots anti-racism.
Right. I mean, the grassroots part's complete fantasy. Right. Back when I first started writing on this stuff, it was still multiculturalism. People would say over and over again, yeah, the thing about it is that everything you say is true about liberal multiculturalism, not about radical multiculturalism. The only problem was there's not a fucking dime's worth of difference between liberal multiculturalism and radical multiculturalism. Right. And that's exactly the way it works for Black Lives Matter now. You know, that is, you need the kind of fantasy of the real thing, and you can attach it to grassroots, but it isn't even a question. Supposing a whole bunch of grassroots people over there really did believe it, it would still be liberal. It would still be, we want, the correct proportions. It would still be, we don't care about equality as such, or we do care about that, but that's not the Black Lives Matter part. That would be like, oh no, we've never been allowed to say this, all lives matter part. And we know the people who did say all lives matter, no doubt did say it with the worst of intentions and the worst of motives. But that doesn't mean that actually they weren't in some technical sense right. Because if you haven't got the universalism, you haven't got like anything that's actually worth fighting for. You're just fighting for proportionality. So yeah, I just don't think there is any such thing as radical Black Lives Matter. It was always what it was.
Right. And I'll tell you what else about that too. I mean, so like you want to see how far back this kind of stuff goes. In the summer of 1970, I was living in Philly, and I went to the Panthers Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention plenary session at Temple, right after Huey Newton got out of jail. And these two really earnest young white guys standing in front of me and my buddy. while we were waiting for the speeches and the acknowledgement from Huey. And one of them turns to the other one and says, yeah, you know, I think the philosophy of right on is being co-opted.
I mean, I was a prophet, really.
And we left and went up the street to the Uptown because there was going to be a big show that night. But I thought, yeah, so that's like over 50 years ago, and it's the way that idealist leftism always works, right? Like you posit this thing. I mean, this was part of what was so annoying about Beavis and Butthead, right? Who did that piece in Jacobin, right? So you posit this fucking fantasy about how movements work and the thing that's out there that's just waiting to be called together, right? Like, you know, when we started the Labor Party, all the Trotskyists, like in North America, were accusing us of trying to corral the not yet quite existent revolutionary proletariat to like deliver it to the Democrats, right? But it's that same kind of logic. And then when prophecy fails, as it were, you ask who is co-opting this bullshit that never existed in the first place.
And I know, Adolph, you've heard me say this a lot. I mean, I've been harping on, and there's been this stunning refusal to acknowledge that, again, at least from what I saw in person, I was at many demos, what I could see on TV or videos, the protests were overwhelmingly white last summer.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a moment, though, when a whole bunch of people were saying, it's different this time, because so many of the protesters are white.
Right.
And they were just saying, oh, my God, the co-opting thing is going to be obvious right from the start here this time.
And I think at heart of this is a lot of really embarrassing kind of tokenizing this idea of like the real radical Black, you know, whatever. And, you know, I remember I got in this conversation, I guess about a year ago, you know, I forget what it was exactly, but some event or something we want to do. And someone, of course, a white person, insisting we have to reach out to a quote unquote Black group. And what they meant is, of course, you know, a supposedly radical group that is extremely small. And kind of what I posed to them is like, well, why are we assuming this group is necessarily more representative, so-called, of Black people than, let's say, the NAACP? I mean, they got more members, or Unite Here, the union, they got, you know, more Black members. And that question really throws people off, because it's like, well, you know, where are we getting this thing that maybe this small group of all Black members of 15 people is more representative, or, you know, can speak for a broader constituency?
Right. Well, and there's also something that's kind of even tawdrier about it. So I'll give this one to the anti-racist. It is that, I mean, I thought about this a lot, and I wasn't the only person to think it. When American and other Western leftists were you know, all over Cyprus's ass for not, leaving the Eurozone, or when they were all over, you know, Chavez's ass, like for not, for not being radical or revolutionary enough. It's kind of like we don't have the capacity to do anything here, right? And it's not, you know, all because we're feckless, right? I mean, we're going up against the Colossus after all. But you want to see something happen, so like you know, send the WOGs in behind enemy lines, basically, right, to make something happen for you. Because that's a little bit what this is like.
I mean, if I were Michael Jordan, I would have won 7 championships. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But that's just me, you know.
If you like this video from The Jacobin Show, please hit like and subscribe. You can also watch the full episode and catch our future live streams by clicking the join button below and becoming a Jacobin YouTube member. Thanks.